You are the left, and you were a prisoner to the extreme left.
You think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No, I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party.
That means they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have the information.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Stephen A. Smith just walked onto The View and turned it into a demolition zone. Within minutes, he dismantled the panel, especially Sunny Hostin, using nothing more than calm, razor-sharp logic. Sunny assumed he'd automatically side with her woke takes just because he's black. Big mistake. Stephen A. didn't take the bait. He hit her with straight-up common sense that left her visibly stunned. Sure, he's under Disney's corporate leash through ESPN, so he couldn't go fully nuclear. But he didn't have to. Every word he dropped landed like a grenade of truth, and Sunny's arguments just crumbled. It was a flawless takedown, clean, calculated, and brutal in its simplicity. Stephen A. didn't just win the debate, he owned the room.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No, I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These
That's
are
less than 1% of the population.
I understand that,
but you know what?
Sunny Hostin walked right into another disaster. With her trademark smugness, she tried to push the idea that letting biological men compete in women's sports is somehow fair. But Stephen A. Smith wasn't having it. He hit back with plain truth. No one wants to see UFC champs or NFL players crushing women on the field just because they identify differently. The physical gap is real, the danger is real, and the unfairness is undeniable. While parents worry about their daughters losing hard-earned opportunities, Sunny brushed it off like it's beneath her, calling people uninformed and acting like only she knows the facts. But that elitist act fell flat. Stephen A. didn't need to yell, just a few calm, logical points, and her entire argument collapsed on live TV.
But I think that's where the mistake is made. You're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you. But most of the voters out there don't think like that.
But that means they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have the information. If you're out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Well, again, I agree with that.
Be uninformed.
Or you listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit. And that's unfortunately what most voters are doing.
Let me ask you this.
Sunny Hostin's reaction at the end says it all. Pure shock that regular Americans don't live in New York penthouses like she does, soaking in endless liberal talking points. She couldn't wrap her head around the fact that most people aren't obsessing over democracy and danger headlines. They're just trying to afford groceries, pay rent, and take care of their families. To Sunny, that kind of grounded thinking is almost foreign. And it showed again when she tried to explain why Hispanic voters backed Trump by implying they should automatically support illegal immigration. The arrogance was unreal. It's as if she genuinely can't imagine what life looks like outside her media bubble. While everyday Americans are worrying about bills and jobs, she's too busy lecturing them from her Manhattan high-rise. Once again, Stephen A. Smith didn't have to say much. Reality did the talking, and Sunny's elitism did the rest.
Well, I want to go back to what you said about black men being very comfortable with matriarchy, and I agree with that because, you know, black households are often led by a grandmother, black grandmother or black mother.
This is where Stephen A. Smith hit pause, and reality hit hard. Sunny tried claiming black men support matriarchy because they're raised by women. Wrong. They were forced into it by Democrat policies that pushed fathers out of the home. And let's be real, black culture itself isn't innocent here. The constant glorification of degrading women in music and media only makes things worse. Stephen A.'s quick interjection cut through all the noise. A blunt truth. The View's panel wasn't ready to face.
However, 55% of Latino men voted for Trump. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that economically, they were looking at things. First of all, you've got, in this country, you've got Cubans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Colombians, et cetera, et cetera. And if you talk to the Hispanic community, depending on who you're talking to, they think differently. The Cubans think differently than the Dominicans. The Dominicans think different than Colombians. To some, the economy was a priority. To some, believe it or not, it was the border. You had some folks within the Hispanic populace that were encouraging the borders to be closed.
I'm Puerto Rican, right? So the Hispanic community is not a monolith. I agree with you. And a lot of, I think, people that are of Hispanic origin from, let's say, South America or Central America, they're willing to close the door behind them instead of letting somebody else in.
Sunny Hostin looked stunned, like she couldn't believe Hispanic voters don't all think the same. She talked as if an entire community should move in lockstep, shocked that individuals might have their own priorities or opinions. Then came the real jaw-dropper. She implied Hispanics who want stronger borders must be closing the door behind them, basically assuming they're all illegal immigrants. That's not just ignorant, it's flat-out racist. Here's the reality Sunny can't seem to grasp. Plenty of Hispanic Americans came here legally and don't want the chaos they left behind to take root in this country. They're proud citizens who want safety, stability, and opportunity, not open borders. Ironically, the only real voting monolith in America is the Black community, which overwhelmingly backs Democrats despite seeing little change. Stephen A. Smith pointed that out with cold, unfiltered logic. And once again, the truth landed harder than any headline.
You are the left, you leaned, and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centrist. You believe in compromise, negotiation, working with one another. Nobody gets to get everything they want. The problem is those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want. They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining and griping about it, because they understand that when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls. And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message, because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you want as a result of it.
Stephen A. Smith nailed it. The Democratic Party has drifted so far left that old school liberals now sound like moderates or even centrist Republicans. The shift wasn't gradual. It was a full sprint toward radicalism, leaving behind the very voters who built the party. In chasing the loudest woke voices, Democrats alienated the middle, the people who just wanted balance, not ideology. They bent the knee to the extremes and lost the trust of everyday Americans in the process. Stephen A. called it exactly as it is. When a party abandons its roots to please activists instead of citizens, it's only a matter of time before voters walk away.
One thing to recognize is this, and I've said this often. When we look at the economy, I remember when Biden came into the office, he inherited about 1.5% inflation. It ballooned to about 9.1% before it ultimately came down to where it is now, right? That doesn't mean anything to minorities. The percentage of inflation, and here's the percentage. Nah. How much does gas cost? How much does the groceries cost, okay? How much does rent cost? How much does my mortgage cost? That's what folks pay attention to, what's actually in their wallet. I don't know too many minorities that want to trust the system. And so when people speak, although you're right and righteous with your emotion and your righteous indignation, other people are saying we have the right to have righteous indignation when it comes to our pocket, or when it comes to our lifestyle, or when it comes to our environment. If we see crimes in the streets and stuff like that, we see homelessness and it's ballooned, we got a problem with that, and we don't believe this person is the answer compared to that. So what? They might have insulted a bunch of people. We don't like it, we hate it, but in the end, it's not more important than my pocketbook or my lifestyle. But you know what?
Here's the blunt reality Stephen A. Smith laid out. Black Americans vote overwhelmingly Democrat, around 90%. But why? It's not because the party has their best interests at heart. It's because the Democrats built a system that keeps them dependent. The party pushed bigger government, free programs, and welfare handouts, all while breaking up families and keeping communities economically trapped. It's a cycle. The poorest group gets the most government aid, and the party secures their votes in return. Meanwhile, other ethnic groups divide their votes more evenly because they're not locked into that system. Stephen A. points out the bigger picture. Democrats shifted to radical, woke positions, preaching oppression, systemic racism, and victimhood, all to justify an expanding government. It's a play for power disguised as help, a strategy that benefits the party far more than the people it claims to serve. The takeaway is simple. Understanding this cycle is crucial to seeing why political loyalty doesn't always equal empowerment.